welcome to the Animal Training Academy Making Ripples podcast show, the show where we share the stories of the ripple-making extraordinaires with behavior nerd superpowers who make up the Animal Training Academy membership. I'm your host and one of the happiness engineers at Animal Training Academy, Shelley Wood from Drop Your Jaws Dog Training in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in the United States. We're absolutely thrilled and grateful to have you here with us today. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. This show is brought to you on behalf of the Animal Training Academy membership. So if you like the conversations in these episodes, then we want to invite you to continue them with like-minded people in the ATA membership, which you can find out more about at www.atamember.com. Within the membership, you can get access to twice monthly live web classes, the back catalog of previous web class replays, plus a huge library of videos and projects to help you problem solve your training challenges. And we're a sociable bunch with an exclusive private Facebook group and forums area. It's like a Netflix social media platform for animal behavior geeks. Today, I'm excited to welcome Brianne Zanella to the show. Brianne Zanella is a program animal specialist at the Oregon Zoo in Portland, Oregon. She engages with thousands of zoo visitors each year, curating experiences that foster curiosity for nature and wildlife. As a program animal specialist working with ambassador animals in a zoo setting, Brianne uses training in a variety of ways. She strives to be creative and considerate about training that provides education animals with choice to participate in programming, and is also ardent about training husbandry behaviors with domestic animals. Brianne's passion is storytelling, particularly geared for young children. She works in the family farm with goats, rabbits, chickens, and more, and loves sharing her furry family with others. By connecting animals that children read about in books at home with those in the farm, she hopes to foster empathy for wildlife in children who will grow into future planet keepers. You can see Brianne, her amazing coworkers, and the stars of the show, Goat Kids Ruth and Sonia, in a series of family-friendly videos, Tiny Goat Visits, available on the Oregon Zoo Facebook and YouTube. Welcome, Brianne. I'm so excited to have you here with us today.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really excited to have you here, and I think that everybody is going to love everything that you have to say today. So let's just jump right in and get started. I have recently had the pleasure of learning a little bit about you and a little bit about the work that you do, but I'm hoping that you can share that with our listeners as well.
Yeah, I can start off by telling you a little bit about what I guess a program animal specialist or an ambassador animal specialist does in a zoo. Right now, our zoo is kind of in flux because of COVID. So we lost a lot of our education department. So we're currently rebuilding that. So that's going to happen. It's probably going to look really different into the future. But previous to COVID, what my role was, I worked in, like I said, the family farm, and we also had a small little education house. It was like this little farmhouse. And so we kind of did a couple things in those areas. The house housed animals that were used for like school programs. So we had like little mammals and reptiles. So we had some hedgehogs, a lot of different snakes and lizards. And so those animals, we had ducks too. That was fun. And they would either travel out on grounds, or some of them went off grounds to schools or retirement homes and did programs like that. So we were the caregivers for those guys. And then we also had the family farm set up. And that's kind of what we have right now, what we're caring for. And that space was used for a couple different things. Originally, it was like a school to work program. So like in the early 2000s when they started it. And so it really gave kids that were from like urban communities here in Portland, like that may not ever be exposed to animals. Maybe they don't even have pets, that they could come to the zoo and like be like, I don't know, like understand everything about animals. Cause you might run across like a squirrel or a crow, but that's just Portland. And the rest of Oregon is very agricultural. So you kind of have that dichotomy, I guess you might say, between communities. So it really gave those kids an understanding of like wildlife that they might not be exposed to. So that's how the farm started. And then I have been at the zoo for almost 7 years now. And since I've been there, we took on part of the Zooteen program. So through the course of the year, we had about 30 teenagers that would come in on their weekends. And it was kids who were interested in maybe working with animals into the future. So they would learn all about how to take care of all these animals, the husbandry, which included training. That was really fun. So not just cleaning up after them, they got to experience, the animal training side of it, animal enrichment. So learning how to keep your animals active, engaged, and happy. And then also gave some like animal presentation experience, like learning how to talk to people, which is a really great thing for kids at that age, like a skill to be learning. All of those things actually are. So it was really, really fun. And so we hosted those kids in the area throughout the whole school year. And then during the summertime, we would ramp up on kind of focusing on visitors. So those kids would the ones we've had all year would run kind of the routines, or, we would all run the routines together. But we also brought in the rest of the Zooteen program, which was, I think at one point, close to 300 Zooteens. So those teens would come in and we'd have little different stations set up, and it changed as animal ambassadors has evolved over even my time being there. Different animals that we had, different setups. So we would run the goat petting yard, popular. They would run that. We also had little stations for hedgehogs so that visitors and little kids during the summer could get up really close and see them, and maybe touch them if they were the more social hedgehogs. Most of them are really shy, but same, we had like little snakes for stations for snakes, rabbits. So kind of changed depending on the year. So it still gave an opportunity for that larger group of Zooteens to, in some way, kind of interact with animals, like more hands-on or close or personal, like creating an opportunity to create a connection with them. And then also it gave the chance for the public to be able to see these animals and ask questions, and like all the little kids and families to kind of have an experience in the summer. So that was kind of what we did pre-COVID. So we'll have to see. We're kind of restructuring everything right now because another part of our department also does the bird show. I think that's, the bird show. Oh, and then they'll do behind the scenes encounters. So it's kind of trying to we're going to see where everything fits, especially as we get new people in place to help kind of figure out where those programs are going.
I think the whole world can relate to making adjustments during and after COVID. So I'm sure that people can all relate to that. Go ahead. Sorry.
It'll be really exciting. Yeah, because there's a lot of changes happening just within like AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and which our zoo is a part of, and ambassador animals, and just really focusing on conservation and how like we're going to play a part in that, since we do have an opportunity to share animals in a different way than you might share like a tiger.
Yeah, that all sounds really exciting for sure. And it sounds, so much of the stuff that you talked about is really interesting. I love the idea of the, I can't remember what you called it, maybe a school work program where you were talking about the kids in the urban area and kind of exposing them to some more things that they might see in more rural areas. Did I get that right? Schoolwork?
Yeah. And that's how it was prior. That was before I had started. There was like an actual program, and then it sort of like evolved into the Zooteen program. So they weren't necessarily coming in after school, but they came on the weekends and then every day in the summer. So that was really fun.
Gotcha.
The other thing too that came out of that and working with teenagers for me for the first time too was also not just being exposed to animals, but some life skills too, because like many of them had like never swept or never used a rake. And at first I was like, what in the But so it really was like a great program because it built a lot of other skills too that you didn't realize were really important. It's like joke when you go off to college and like there's that person that doesn't know how to do laundry. It's like, turns out there's people that don't know how to sweep either.
That's great. And I can imagine that the kids would in a zoo environment, especially working with animals, learn a lot of kind of life skills, like the ones you're talking about. Do you also see those kids learning what you might think of as more like social skills or emotional kind of observation or management skills or anything like that from their interactions with the animals?
Yeah, absolutely. And we also, that was for us really important to foster with them, because I always joke that I didn't really talk to people until I was 25. I was just really shy and like, I mean, still like, this is my job to be like this right now, but like, I'm not that way. So I just look at all of the kids and I'm always so proud because I'm like, I was in tears. I actually think I applied for this program in like 1991 or something. And I was like, I definitely got denied because I was too shy. And so I really like taking on, especially those kids that just because, I mean, everybody has something to contribute. And so they're going to learn to be better speakers and that'll just help prepare them for the future, especially now. And a lot of kids that do come through are pretty well spoken. I don't know if that's because of like social media now, but so they are learning to find their voices younger, maybe than maybe my generation or just my experience. But it is something that like, I know that I struggle with. And so I really identify with them. And so I really try to foster or help if they want those kids with that, like, and like, I'll stand there. I won't stand there. Like just making them feel comfortable with whatever's holding them back. If they don't feel like they have enough facts or they're just don't know what to say or if they're going to say the wrong thing. And it's like, just say that it's cute. That's what I do. So like, and just try to be an example. So yeah, that is actually for me, it was kind of one of my little back here goals that I really like to work with them with.
Yeah, that's something that's really close to my heart as well. I get the chance to work with young people and dogs, and I think we talked about that a little bit before. Yeah, so I love hearing about what you're doing with the Zooteen program and what you all were doing or what was going on before that too with the schoolwork program. Do you know, and you may not know this being on the kind of zoo end instead of the I don't know where the kids come from for the program. And so I'm wondering how they're selected. Is that something that happens at the zoo or is that something that happens from an outside organization that's working with the kids?
Yeah, it was. Well, we don't have the program now because we had to get rid of volunteers, but it was done through, we had a youth volunteer coordinator. And so they would really try to accept as many people as they could. There was like an application process and there was, worked on a lot. I didn't have too much involvement in that, but I know that they worked very hard to make it an equitable process as well. So we didn't have like necessarily just, I don't know, kids from this school or that school. It was like, it was very regional, and the limiting factor was more like, could they get here? So, and then kind of after that point, they could specialize after a couple years. And so our husbandry teams were like a specialty. So then they had some other programs within the overall program, Zooteen program, where they could do like the conservation corps. That was really fun. Or so just kind of their interests. Oh, and then they would have the teams too that would help with summer camps. So ones that really wanted to do like education and so they had a way to kind of do that. So another program that we have is called Zoo Animal Presenters, and they're actually a paid program, and that is, or it's paid staff. It's teenagers, youth staff that are from communities that might not have as much access, like within Portland. Maybe either it's just they can't get to the zoo, or they don't even know like what what's available to them. So those teens and that staff, it was like a 3-year program. And so the first year they'll actually, they do apply and you have to kind of get in, there's a certain number. And so that first year they'll get I'll start over on what the program is. So this is a program that they actually do apply because it is a job. And so the first year they'll spend learning how to actually handle animals, and then they'll take animals back into those communities. And then, so it kind of represents that like, oh, I didn't know this job even existed, that you could work with animals, that you could care about animals, that this is what a zoo does. And so it's like a model or giving them an option of a career path that maybe they didn't know they even had access to. So it's a really great program in that way. The second year, I believe they used to do, what's it called? It's UNO. I'm trying to remember what it stands for. Urban Nature Overnights. And so the staff would actually take kids on camping trips. And so there are many people, if you live in a city, that have never gone camping, especially if you don't have maybe as much access as other people. And so it really tried to serve those communities that may not have that access and give them that opportunity to be and spend time in nature. And then the third year, there was, I think it was a lot of leadership opportunities and really like fostering that like job development and skills development, and then supporting the other couple of years. And then so over COVID, they've been doing a lot of in-reaches, is what I think they're calling them. And so they'll invite different groups, like community groups, into the zoo and give them tours and little like to-go baggies that are, and also and they're the ones that are leading it. So again, it's like showing them that there are these opportunities in the world that maybe you didn't know about.
Oh my gosh, all of these youth programs sound so cool and really powerful. Do I understand correctly? You said something a minute ago, and I'm not sure if I got it right or not, but do I understand correctly that some of the kids in this ZAP program, some of the kids in this in ZAP, were able to actually take an animal at some point back into their community? Did you say that? Oh, that is. Okay, yeah. That is so cool. So not only are these young people like learning these skills and benefiting from this, but they're also, as we like to say in Animal Training Academy, spreading ripples throughout their whole communities, perhaps. So
yeah, absolutely. And it is more powerful for them to be doing it than me or some of our other education staff. It just models, it's being closer in age, seeing somebody that looks like them. It's just so much more powerful. I really, really love that program. I'm glad that it's still here.
Very cool. I'm wondering with ZAP or the Zooteen program or even the school work program, if you know if any young people who have gone through those programs have gone on to a career in working with animals in some way. You may not have that information. I don't know.
Funny story. No. I believe that several of them have. However, my coworker has. She was one of the first people. Well, her brother and actually her brother has done some stuff along the way too. But she went through that program. I don't know how many years ago, but but it was near the beginning. And then she went off to college, and then she came back and actually became the supervisor, I believe, or at that time, like that, it was that level, that supervisor of those staff. So she would take those staff, like I was saying, and facilitate them like out in the communities. She did that. And then she wanted to shift that and get more experience working with animals. And so I don't know what it is now, 4 or 5 years ago now, she actually transitioned. She got a position in our department. So she is actually working with me. And you'll see her. We'll probably talk later about tiny goat videos. She's Jen. She's in those. So yeah, she is one of the, I guess they're all success stories. I'm sure they all went off and they've done something. And I know there's another staff member that I'm sure she was in staff was in ZAP originally. And then she also has moved through different positions that are sort of natural within our the metro system. So there's a few that have got that I know of, but I know all those kids are really set up for success.
I love hearing those stories. That's amazing. It's just so cool to be able to expose young people to just a wide variety of opportunities, maybe some that they're not aware of at all, or maybe some that they are aware of, but they just don't really see the ability to get involved in that in some way, or they just want more knowledge about it. Just very cool to expose young people to things like you're doing and see that change their lives. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. And you just mentioned tiny goats. I should say that you sent me a link to tiny goats this morning, and I sent you a message and said, I'm going to be late for our recording because I cannot stop watching tiny goats. These little goats are so cute. So can you please share with everybody a little bit about Ruth and Sonia and who the tiny goats are?
Yeah, they are our two little goats. They're going to be turning, I think, 4 at the end of January now. But when we made these videos, they were just a couple of months old even. And so we have Ruth, who is the tiny goat. She was about 3 pounds when she was born. She was super tiny. I heard she was one of 5, which is pretty unusual, I guess, to have 5. So that's why she's so small. But and not only that, she is filled with personality. And it's kind of at that time, and well, even now, small but mighty. And so that's how she kind of got her name, because of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It was like small but mighty. So, and she had like a little, like, she's all black, and then she had like little white spots, especially when she was a baby. So it looked like a judge's collar. Yeah. So that's Ruth. And then she is a Nigerian dwarf goat. And then Sonia is a mini Nubian. So Nubians, I believe, not minis, but actual Nubians stand pretty tall, like up to your shoulders, but she's a mini. And so she has those long droopy ears, and she's all brown. And so you have our tiniest goat with our tallest goat, and it's pretty fun. And then Sonia, her personality is, and she's also a Supreme Court justice, I should say, Sonia Sotomayor. So that's how she got her name. And she is our like sweet, emotional goat, and she works it hard in her eyes. Like it's really great because you always know what she's thinking. She's very expressive, and she'll just work you to get what she wants. Whereas Ruth is sort of like, I will have this now. Like she's a queen. So at this point, so yeah, we got them as 3 days old. They were only born like a day apart from different farms, and we were bottle feeding them, and we used to just kind of take them out for walks. Like we had done this with previous herds, and so we're like, oh, we have these babies, like we'll just like, they're always have energy, and like we'll just walk them around. And then one day, or we have also another department at the zoo, I think it was our fish and herpetology team at the time, have this little bicycle, and then they hook up like a little wagon, a little like, I don't know, baskets on the front of their carts. Excuse me. And so there's obviously goats, so they're jumping on everything. So they're jumping in the little carts and the baskets and stuff. And our media person, manager, had walked past and was like, that's adorable. And like everybody was taking pictures. So he was like, oh, do you care if I come down and film you guys on a walk? And we were like, oh, sure. Like, and God bless. Oh, excuse me. And God bless our media department, because I had done one thing ever in my entire life. And then it was with them, and it was like a month prior to this. And I think they pieced together 3 sentences in order to make it into one coherent sentence that I said. So I was like, if you want, like, you can come and film. So we kind of just thought it was a one-off, because like they'll put out, like, I mean, you can go there now. There's so many cute videos of like our little beavers like dragging branches around, or penguins walking through the forest, or our polar bears playing. So we're just like, oh, he's just gonna get this little video. And then he made like 3 or 4, or the little media group did. And I was like out to lunch with a friend who works at the zoo, and she was like, oh yeah, like he's out of town, like he's talking to Facebook. And I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. Like Facebook ended up picking it up. At that time they were doing, I forget what they were called, or what they are called now, but they were really focused on these like 4-minute videos. So like not too long, but they didn't necessarily want like something that's like short and viral. They were trying to really do this like 3 to 4 minute situation. And so it was like perfect. And so they ended up promoting it, and yeah, it just like went crazy. And it was just like our adorable little baby goats. Like the concept was like walking them around to meet different animals around the zoo. And you can I can see, but I would say the first 3 to 4, you can, or I guess what I like about it is you can really see their growth from like super babies to even, I think maybe they were 6 months, if that, like by the time we were done filming. And it's fun for me to watch, because like the first 3 to 4, they're kind of within themselves. Like they're just happy to be out. They're playing, they're on the objects. They're like not really interested in other animals sometimes. But then there's a point at which they're like, whoa, what is that? And I feel like that's even like so relatable for childhood development too. Like at some point your baby starts seeing, like growing and seeing outside of itself, and like experiencing different parts of the world. So it was just so fun to watch them grow and see the changes. And we'll always have that. Like, I'm so like thankful for our media department, because I have this little treasure and the world does too, to see an animal kind of grow up in a really relatable way, I think.
It is a treasure. And I hope that everybody listening will go and check out the Tiny Goat videos. We'll link them in the show notes so that people can do that. I have a favorite out of the ones that I have watched so far.
Ooh, okay.
My favorite so far is, do you want to guess what it is? Any idea?
Did you start from the beginning, or did you jump around?
I jumped around.
Okay. Elephants?
No, I haven't watched that one yet. That's one I haven't watched yet.
Okay.
I'll just
tell me, which one is it?
Okay. The Chupacabra.
Okay, that one was like, I think like the biggest, it was like 5 million views or something. Who is watching this? Like, I was like, oh my God, like, did some classroom just put it on loop? Like, that one was, I think that was the most popular one. I just think it's because
of the spronks.
Like, he's so, the little spronks. Yeah. And I love those guys. So
can you tell everybody what the Chupacabra, that's the animal's name, of course, they were calling it Chupacabra, but can you tell everybody what species of animal it is? And maybe tell them, when I said it's because of the spronks, what the spronks are? Yeah,
he is Patagonia cavy. So they're a South American rodent. And from what I understand, they're kind of everywhere. But the spronking, I think, is what is really interesting for them. Like what really makes people laugh about it. And it's just kind of like a curiosity, excitement thing that they do. Because I think even there's different words for it too. Spronk was like this old word that I've used before, but I think like there's something really similar that is the same movement that like deer do, we might be familiar with. But yeah, it's like when a rabbit kind of jumps like really high in the air and they do those little like twirls and jumping around, same thing. So he was just like super excited to investigate the goats.
It's so
zoom
cute.
around. Yeah. It's really cute.
It's so
That
cute.
it is like one of the fan favorites. Yeah. The other thing that became really popular from those two were like the dad jokes. They were like always having me do them too. So I think like one of my favorites was probably the tortoise one. So even though it's like the opposite, it's like super slow, but I don't know if you've seen that one yet, but but there's like it was fun for me to by the end try to do or like find them and then try to prepare for it. And that one I felt like I did like a prime dad joke right in there because it was like it was something like, oh, watch out, he's coming right toward us. But it was just like you could have heard it either way. I don't know. But that one was the tortoise one was really fun for me. I love those keepers. And then the tortoises were like, we got to go in with them, and the goats got to kind of play around on them. And the tortoises are like, what in the what? Don't see that every day. So that's probably one of my favorites, but I like them all. Like I can't pick a favorite, and people ask me that all the time. And it's almost like when they ask me, what's your favorite animal? And I'm like, I think because I think many people have a favorite animal, but I have worked through my career with so many different animals that like, and because my job is education, I just find so much like value and love in all of them. So like there's something to be learned from everyone and everything. And so I'll walk around like, oh, probably like, of course I love Sonia and Ruth or the goats, and like, but look at this little bunny. It's so cute. Like just like flip flop, So that's how, but anyway, back to the videos. That's how I feel about the videos is that I can't pick a favorite.
They're wonderful. And I like that you called them a treasure before. I think they really are. And you and your colleagues just look joyful as you are walking, almost skipping sometimes through the park with these little bitty baby goats who are walking so nicely on loose leashes too. Really.
I know. We're so proud. They were so good. We're working on it with the other guys, but because we started, I think, so young with those guys, and we had some off leash time at that point. We didn't have the construction that we have going on now, or have just finished. But anyway, during those years, we could actually feel a little comfortable kind of running them off and then putting them on. And so, yeah, that was definitely a goal for us. The loose lead and the not tugging. And they were really good. I guess I was going to say it was easier when they're younger because they're attached to us, but they're actually, because they're attached to us, they're so independent. Like I literally, like, you're not supposed to do this with children either. I'm learning, but like, we'll be like, bye, Ruth. Like, because she'll be like eating leaves. She doesn't care. She's like, bye. Like, like, whereas like other animals or kids or whatever will like come running like, no, don't leave me. Like, so that never worked on Ruth. She's like, it's cool. I got my life taken care of. I don't need you. She does though. She does show in other ways, but not when it comes to that. She knows she'll call our bluff.
Well, she is adorable. They are both adorable, and I hope everybody will go and watch them. And I could spend the whole rest of our time talking about the little Ruth and Sonia, but and maybe they'll come up again. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
I know you also live with an animal, I believe a bird, correct?
Yeah, I have a little Quaker parakeet, or a monk parrot is sometimes what you call him. Yeah. So it's like fits in the size of your hand. Green. He's very outspoken, has also a huge personality. He thinks he owns the world. He's so tiny, but he bosses everyone around, like dogs, giant like parrots. Like he doesn't care. He's like, this is my space. So
well, I don't know if we're going to hear a little bit about him now, or about some of the animals maybe that you work with at the current zoo, or some that you have worked with previously. But I would love to hear you share with us a little bit about a recent training related challenge that you have experienced and how you worked through it, and maybe some of the things or how you are working through it, and maybe some of the things that you learned from it.
Sure. I was kind of thinking about that, deciding this is one that was more of like kind of like a conceptual challenge for us. It wasn't necessarily like a specific behavior that we were working on, but when we had Ruth and Sonia, we also kind of we were transitioning between an older herd and then getting these new ones in. And so we had Ruth and Sonia, and then we got a couple more. You'll see stuff with like little baby Bruce Wayne, like his mom, and then a couple others that are also very young. So we just like, boom, had this like 6 new animals, like all in one summer. Then we also had 4 baby rabbits that came in. And also at that time we had 4 chicks come in. And so we had this summer of like babies. And so the most important thing for me anyways, a lot of socializing when they're young, because we want them to be like comfortable. And they're like they're domestic animals. So they're meant to be, they're fine. Like they're comfortable around people, but you still want to be like, I'm your mom. And like lots of, if they want it, touching and socializing. So that was the prime. And you're already spread so thin with that, because normally you get maybe just a couple and not like 13 or whatever that you had, whatever we had at that point. So that was already like a big time endeavor. But then I also, especially for the goats and the rabbits too, I guess all of them really, it was important. I wanted them to have like some of just the basics of animal training, like just understanding it's a game, and because it will like benefit them so much down the line to be learning it younger. Because even a couple of the goats that we got in were older and just lived in a herd, like out on the land, where they came from. So they're real cool with people, but like even now training is fun for them, but it's like it takes us a little bit longer to teach them things. And I don't know if that's just our goats or their situation. I don't know what their situation was and all that. They love it, but there is a clear difference between the ones that we started training when they were like Ruth and Sonia, like 3 days old, and even walking on a leash. Those Ruth and Sonia are our walkers. Like the other ones, my coworker Jen has been working diligently through COVID to get all of them like halter, leash, walk comfortable, just because we've acquired them at all different stages in their life. So that one summer, it was basically figuring out, especially, and because summer we're running a whole bunch of different programs too. So it was trying to like this is our time that we have to feel like we have to do this training along with all this other stuff. So what we ended up doing was almost like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the word, but it's like rotational. Like we would set up, we had 3 indoor stalls that are in public view. And so we would like kind of close off the middle one. And it was this little like revolving door, like one would come in and we'd be like, look at this stuff. And like just slowly teach them at whatever their pace was, like basic things. Because we also in a zoo want to teach them things that help us with their care, even basic too. Like for me, the things that I first taught was target, which that was easy for all of them. But just having that knowledge, target, going onto a station, also pretty easy for them because goats really like to be up high and curious. So like standing on a table or log, they're like, got it. And then also back up, because with so many of them in there and they're highly motivated for the food that you are bringing them. Like we taught that, the backup. So that was the first thing that we taught all of them. And it was this little, like, we set it up. So it was this rotational sort of like next, just so you would keep it going. And I didn't know if that was going to work. It actually did. We were able to get really far to the point where I was like, I've run out of like basic behaviors. And so because of that setup too, we're like somewhat limited, like, yeah, we're just gonna have to go the extra mile, which because of our time limits, like couldn't. So we ended the summer. It was a good time for the summer to end. Because we had gone through all those, like, I think they all know circle or doing a little circle both ways for the most part on a lot of them. They'll like, most of them will jump, like do a little jump up. What else? Oh, they'll do circle in a variety of ways, I should say. So they'll like circle left and right. They'll circle around us. They'll circle through our legs. Some of them will do, I think they did like little weaving through cones. And then there's Ruth, who learns, she just she just has an aptitude. And also I think the connection with me, Like we all say we have, like, we all work all the goats, but then we're like, yeah, that one picked you. Like, because Sonia is Jen's goat. And yeah, and Ruth is definitely like, she learns too fast for me. She learns like a primate and she picks up like that. Like, so she knows a lot of stuff from that summer. Like I even started working on, because the next step for me, or I guess I should say the reason that we wanted to teach them that it's a game and fun, or and teach them the game young, is because then it helps us teach husbandry or like cooperative care behaviors later on in life. And so with Ruth, I was able to start doing, it started as like a high five. And so that was like cute for that summer. And then we eventually, she doesn't do the high five anymore, but we turn it into like, she'll tuck her legs back. And then so we can either do a hoof trim on the front legs. She doesn't like the back ones, but nobody does. But that, or also maneuvering potentially down the line for like a radiograph or x-ray procedure. So it's kind of moving those limbs out of the way while they can take the picture. So yeah, she is one smart cookie, and she crazy. Like I taught her the high five. She picked it up super fast. And she's another fun one too, that I learned halfway through that summer, like works for attention, which I have historically, like, it's a game but it's structured for a reason. Like, but for me, from my perspective, but like if I am like, do my thing, and then she'll do a breakthrough, I realized I was like, oh my God. So it was like jackpotting with attention, and she'll get it immediately. Like from that point on, will do exactly that. And she's looking for the next one to get me to do that. And I learned also that summer that if she doesn't get that jackpot after X number of tries, she gets mad at me. She does this little like this little huff. And I was like, oh my God, it's so cute. But I've only heard it a couple times, but it was just at that beginning, I was like, oh my, is she, like, just a realization for me, like she's really motivated by like just me. And then my whatever feedback I'm giving her. So yeah, so we're working, or I guess that was our summer of training, that we really had to kind of come up with a way to get everything done. And it was a fun challenge. And yeah, all those little guys know a whole bunch of stuff, and slowly, and then COVID kind of hit, I mean, like a year or so after that. So it's been harder to do because we don't have, or for a year, we didn't have a crossover. So because of the quarantines and stuff. So some of behaviors we could advance to a certain level, but at some point you need to start adding in like a second person there, even if it's just the body for, like if it were a vet procedure, like the presence of a second person means this or that. So, or even with, I guess this is another one, because I have been training kind of a radiograph situation with Ruth. And so, which I guess is the other example that I have, but I can talk about in a second. But yeah, it would be nice to have a second person there. So there's some of those challenges that we'll just have to work out in the next, hopefully not that long. Once we have a couple bodies, we do have some overlap now. So, but mostly the overlap time right now is for like actual husbandry that has to be done. And there's not as much training time available, but.
Well, hopefully that will change soon. And you said, you took the words out of my mouth a minute ago when you said that it was a fun but busy summer. That's exactly what I was going to say. After you finished talking about that summer, it sounded like it was a very fun, but yet busy summer. And when you mentioned your relationship with Ruth, it made me think of one of the tiny goat videos I watched where you said, I believe you said that you were the fun aunt for the goats.
It's true. I still hold that. The Zooteens called me that, and I'm like, I will absolutely take it. Like, and because the Zooteens aren't there anymore, then that means I am the reigning holder of that title. So
I can see that, and I'm sure they love their fun aunt. But it sounds like you have an extra special relationship with Ruth for sure. So you kind of alluded to this already, but could you share with us now a training situation that you are proud of and or that you have found reinforcing?
We've kind of discovered, at least with me, that the animals are like, they're either sleeping on my lap or they're like a level 10, like, this is so fun. So like, and we have like so many pictures. They're just like, man, every picture is an animal sleeping on your lap. And I'm like, like, and then I'll go to train and it's like, it's very fun. And so they're so motivated and they want to do well in whichever way, what's meaningful to them. So when I went to try to train this radiograph procedure, which is basically started by like getting them to station up against a wall. And then next step would be to like stay. Like, apparently stay is really hard for them and I think part of it is me and part of it is because of that summer of training, and they're so young and everything's so like exciting that they're used to like hit, do this thing. And they're like, what's next? Yeah. And so getting them to stay at this point is so hard. Like, I don't know if other people have that problem with goats or if it's just an us problem, but that is something that we are working on and trying to kind of like work around. And like, so I have throughout the past COVID times have been trying to find everything I can on like duration training, and I've not given up. I just need to be more dedicated to it. So I will fully admit that it is my own dedication that is, or like prioritizing that is like hindering the growth of this. But some of the things that we did, or that I did change about that has helped immensely. And it goes back to Jen and I working different schedules, is that like I watched her one day once we were all back halter these goats and put them on the leash, and she has them stepping up on a stool, like that simple. She just has their little front feet. That's how she stations them. And they're like, they just sit there and she'll like walk away. And I'm like, that is what I'm trying to do. Like, so I added a stool and it's helped at least the beginning steps of like creating a duration, like, because before they're just like, no, I'm not at even the smallest, tiniest, I'm not. So I felt like I couldn't even like bridge the tiniest bit to create the duration, but adding that step stool has like, it allowed me to do those first couple like slow durations. And it's actually really helped with a couple of the ones that I've been focusing on. So yeah, watch your coworkers. That's my, which we would normally probably anyway, but yeah, if you have the opportunity, you never know.
A couple of things pop into my head when you say that. One is something that I have heard Ryan say before, and I'll probably butcher it, but he says something sometimes to the effect of when looking kind of at challenges, if you could change one small thing, no matter how small that thing might be, what would it be? You know, and sometimes something just as simple as let's just introduce this little stool here can really jumpstart your progress somewhere. And then the other thing it made me think of is I think there is a web class on, I think maybe on back chaining duration from Mary Hunter in the Animal Training Academy community archives. I could be wrong, but I think there is one for sure on duration in there. So you may check that out too. Yeah,
I definitely will. And I knew that the answer was going to be something simple like that. I was like, I just got to figure out what it is.
Yeah. And maybe it's not, I mean, maybe it is the answer and maybe it's not the answer, but just a little simple change that has put you on the right road to the answer. Now, you know, it's bought you a little bit of a change to get the answer. And maybe it is, you know, sometimes just one little tweak changes everything, which is always amazing.
And Ruth, of course, like I usually will start something like that with her because she really wants to figure it out. So she'll, figure it out. So she actually pretty much did it, but that's kind of cheating because it doesn't work for the rest of them. So yeah, that's where it became. And the guy that we really need, our little youngest one right now, like he does have potentially in the future some like bone issues. And so he's the one that's like so excited. Like when he was a baby, he used to like, anytime you'd give him the cue, he would do a little hop and he'd be like, oh, like, and then do it. And it wasn't like a superstitious thing. It was just like a totally excited, like, oh yeah, we're doing that now. Oh, okay. Like, oh, and so he's always like prancing around and I'm like, stay. No. So yeah, stool. That's what it was.
Well, I'm going to keep watching the Tiny Goat videos, but I hope that you'll start sharing some of this stuff in the Animal Training Academy community too, like this little guy that hops up before he does anything. I'd love to see that as well. So, and I think you had another example of something that you're proud of or that you found reinforcing that you were going to share with us.
Yeah, the one that came to mind when I was thinking about this, it was kind of like, I mean, I feel like, yes, this is what a lot of maybe zookeepers or what we're all doing, like in our own animal training journeys. But for us, it's kind of was our really first experience, especially as a team doing this behavior. And it was just a cooperative care behavior with a rabbit. And what I've discovered too is that like, we all know about this, but when I work with like visitors or something, they're like, I did not know that you could train a goat. I did not know that you could train a rabbit. And so for us, we had this rabbit with an eye infection and a weepy eye. So we trained him to accept like a little salve in his eye. And so you'll see, I mean, it's like you kind of set it up as you would maybe a blood draw or something else, but to see it in a rabbit or do it for a rabbit is pretty unique, at least for people. And it was really reinforcing for us because we kind of do these other little things, but this was like an immediate need and it was going to be really functional for like the veterinarians and for our animal. So that's why we ended up being super proud of it. But the situation was that he had an eye infection and he was going to need the drops or the salve 2 times a day for a month. And so we were like, okay, well, we could restrain him. And I think that's important to me too, is that I think a lot of times people would overlook the fact that like, you could train that. That's an opportunity. Not maybe us in this group, but like a person out, like a lay person or somebody who has a rabbit. So it was like, we really wanted to do it because we're like, yeah, we could restrain him, but like, we could also train him like, and make it so much like his life so much better. Also because he was an older rabbit. He was retired from programming. He never really was very social. He didn't, as in like, he didn't seek out social interaction. He really didn't like to be touched. So we were like, this is going to be uphill, but let's just try, like, because it's going to be even, he will not like it even more if if we're restraining him. And honestly, like he took to it so well, we like, couldn't believe it. We're like, is this a right rabbit? Like, so it did make us reevaluate too some of the way that we cared for him. Cause like, we were like, maybe we should sit in with him more or like, cause other rabbits will like, even if they don't want to be touched, they'll like come be near us, but he still never did, but we tried after that. I mean, it just opened our eyes to some other possibilities of like, maybe he does want interaction that we haven't really thought about, but we loved him so much because he did have like such attitude. It's always those ones, so we're like, Somber, like, you want this, buddy? He's like, no, like, but anyway, so we said it. Oh, and I should say too, like our veterinarian that worked with us on it was like one of our biggest champions. Like he was so pro doing this. And we were like, it might take, we don't know how long it's going to take to train. Like, what's your window? Like, is it okay if we like blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, take your time, do it. And we're like, okay. Like, and I want to say it took us only like a week or 2 to actually train it, which was like kind of incredible for us. And I think that because we expected it maybe to take longer because of his history, but we had a little setup where it was like a little litter pan that we turned upside down. So we kind of like put his little paws up there and perch. And then we slowly, it was kind of that merge between baiting and training, that you'll see with like blood draws and stuff. There's somebody feeding over here and somebody doing the action over here. But it was just me at first. So we kind of had he loves in dive. And so he just sat there and he munched, and it really didn't take long for us to start like touching his eye. And actually he preferred having the tube, which was better for us, was like having the tube touch his eye than our actual hands kind of putting it in. So that also sped things up. And I think the biggest challenge for us during that was just during the turnover process. us because like, obviously I'm there 5 days a week, but my days off, somebody else was going to have to do it. And so as we started to add in just another person, like just being around, he was really like, to him, that was always like 2 people, vet, gone. So the actual behavior like wasn't as challenging as we thought. It was this other sort of part to it that we were like, but he knows us. Like even when like he would let Jen do it. And then I would come and stand to watch just to be like, is she in the right position? Like trying to keep all the parameters the same the first couple of times. And he was just kind of like, I don't, it's so it didn't matter who it was that 2-person thing. So we just finally were like, yeah, looks good. Or like would have to set up a camera kind of just to make sure, like as we were training ourselves, like turning it over. But yeah, and we actually were able to do it, and his infection cleared up, but he still from time to time would get a weepy eye throughout his life. But it was nice because I think one other time he did have to go on the meds again, and it just took like 1 or 2 like refresher sessions, and he did it. So also super proud because he remembered. Like it was trained well enough and it was positive enough to where he was fine doing it again. So that was a situation that we're all really proud of because it took so many people and we did it. And it was cooperative care for domestic animals.
That's awesome. I can see why you all are very proud of that. And I could also see that it probably fits that behavior that you've trained that you find reinforcing too, probably, or maybe I could see that that might prompt you to, teach even more of those cooperative type behaviors. For sure. Wonderful.
Yeah. And that's what was definitely, because you're like, okay, like these goats are so just want your attention in the form of training. Like they love it. And so it's like, what can we start doing that can benefit them? And that's why we kind of landed on radiograph, because our last herd towards the end of life had so many just like bone problems. So and it was, you'd have to like put them in a halter and hold them a certain way to get this. So if they're just it would be great if they would just walk up and pose and, like so much less like stress for them. So that's kind of where definitely having our little rabbit Hawthorne was motivating to try to figure out what are some other things we can do with our other animals.
I love that Hawthorne's eyes cleared up as well, and that you were somebody was able to use that trained behavior again in the future with him too when things popped back up. Well, thank you so much, Brianne, for everything that you have shared with us today, for taking the time to come and chat with everybody, or chat with me, so that everybody can benefit from the discussion. And if people wanted to catch up with you to find out more about what you're doing, and if they wanted to see the tiny goat videos, all of that kind of thing, where should people look for you and your work? And we'll link to it all in the show notes as well. But for folks that maybe aren't able to read it, if you could share that with people, that would be great.
Yeah, the tiny goat videos you can see on Facebook and YouTube. I have a LinkedIn page. It's fairly new. But it's up there. And it kind of gives you a history and a way to contact me if you have any questions. And please reach out. The other thing I wanted to say too is that like, as an educator, like I'm really missing it. And I've done a lot of education, like school programming, homeschool stuff in the past. So I know so many parents and teachers are struggling right now. So if anyone out there wants like help with a lesson plan, or you want like a Friday guest speaker, like whatever it is, like please feel free to reach out. Like I would love to come and talk to your kids about like whatever, whether it's training or maybe something you're learning in class, or if you're like a math teacher and you're like want something super weird, like I bet you I could find something in the animal kingdom that applies to whatever like you're trying to teach. So feel free to reach out to me, because I would absolutely love, and I really, really miss working with kids right now.
And if somebody did want to reach out to you about that, would they reach out to you through that LinkedIn page, or do you have an email that you wanted to share, or how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. They can reach out on LinkedIn. I honestly don't use it that much, but I think it's theirs, or I just started using it. I think you can send messages through that. You can also reach me at my email, which is bzanella81@gmail.com. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And from myself and on behalf of everybody listening today, thank you for taking time out of your day on this. Actually, when people listen to this, it's going to be probably March-ish, I'm guessing. But Brianne has actually taken time out of her day on New Year's Day to chat with me. So hopefully everybody will be having a wonderful New Year by the time they hear this episode.
Yes. Thank you so much for thinking of me and having me. I'm glad that we got a chance to talk to people.
Me too. I am too. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. So thank you very much. We do, of course, appreciate all of you tuning in as well. And if you have enjoyed this episode and are interested in carrying on the conversation about working with the animals in our lives in the most positive, most fun, and most choice-rich ways, then as mentioned at the start of this episode, the Animal Training Academy community is waiting for you. Head on over to www.atamember.com and click on the membership button in the main menu to learn more about what members are describing as the Netflix social media platform for behavior geeks. That's it for this episode, though. Thank you so much for listening. You'll hear from us again soon.